Good afternoon and welcome to our Goizueta MBA web chats. My name is Angela Bostic. I'll be your moderator for today. We're here talking about admissions in our monthly chats that happen on the fourth Thursday of each month. And I am joined today by Heather Holland, who is our Associate Director of MBA Admissions with our full-time program. Heather also has the distinction of knowing everything there is to know about our MBA events in relation to recruiting. So hopefully she'll have some great answers for you guys for questions about events happening both here and around the country, and ways you can get involved with the business school as you get started on the process. A little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. For those of you who haven't joined a chat with us before, this is a very informal setting. We don't come with an agenda. The purpose is for you to feel free to ask whatever questions you have in whatever timing you need. So go ahead and submit your questions using the window available and ask those things as you think of them, and I'll seed them to Heather as they become available and when they fit in. In addition, we have folks off camera who can answer some other questions that might not be the right thing to necessarily answer on questions, or maybe that on camera, and that may be better for someone else to answer. And then all your questions are captured. So if we can't answer it here or behind the camera, we can certainly email you afterwards and get you an answer to the things that are there. So as they say, there are really no bad questions, only the ones that are not asked.
That's right.
And we will go ahead and get started today. We're scheduled to go for at least a half an hour, but we will take your questions as they come in, and I will give you guys enough window of time to know kind of when we're close to wrapping up. Also, the actual chat itself will be available about 5 to 7 business days after we're done taping it, so you guys can look at the answers again should there be something specific that you just want to review. So with all the background covered and cleaned off, I'm going to get started and talk to Heather just a little bit about the recruiting process, because this is the time where downstairs, the admissions team, you guys are in full force.
That's
so
right.
Talk a little bit about what's going on right now from MBA admissions and what should prospective students know.
Right. So this is the time of year where we are constantly on the road. So calling the office, you will probably get 1 or 2 of us in the office, and a handful will be out and about worldwide. So you'll want to keep an eye out for Goizueta attendance at different fairs. We will be participating in many of the MBA tours, Consortium, Forte. We are also in the process of planning some receptions that will happen both in target cities like New York and DC, as well as several on-campus events that will be taking place in the fall. We are also assembling our class visit process, and that's something I'm working very closely with our current student ambassadors to have a slew of classes that full-time students, and evening will do them as well as EMBA, where you can actually come onto campus and attend a real class. And for full-time, those begin on September 8th. So we are on the road. We have a representative going to Asia in a week, I believe. Kate will leave for Asia for the MBA tour. So those of you in Tokyo, Seoul, Taipei, Shanghai, and Beijing, keep an eye out for her. So we are busy earning some Sky Miles at this point.
I was going to say, flying around the world.
And that's why when we vacation in the summer to use them. So
it's definitely a busy time, and I know that a lot of prospective students have questions, because this is when you guys are kind of getting your applications ready. So we've got a couple of questions that have come in related to the application, and there's always a question related to scores and GMAT. So talk a little bit about the GMAT, and from a full-time perspective, but also for the evening and executive candidates that are on the chat. How does the GMAT play into y'all's decision-making? What are the ranges and things? How do you all use it?
Sure. So we accept both the GMAT and the GRE. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Both tests are regarded equally. The GMAT is one of the ways that we can measure a candidate's ability to succeed in the classroom. So when you think about what is it that you guys do around the admissions committee table, we are assessing multiple buckets and multiple things in your application. We're assessing your ability to learn, your ability to be successful in a very rigorous program and classroom environment. So the GMAT is a very GMAT and GRE is a very researched and documented way for us to measure your ability to be successful. So we do have a range. Our range, keep me honest here, is about a 620 to 740 roughly for our class. That's 80% of the students that enroll within the full-time program fall within that range. We do like to look at strong quantitative scores. As you can imagine, an MBA is very quantitatively focused. So the GMAT is one area. So another area we look at would be your college transcript to measure how successful we anticipate you can be in the rigorous program. So What if I don't score a 620? What if I'm below that average? Should I still apply? Absolutely. Should you attempt to take the test again? Probably.
So talk about that process. 'Cause I think there's some questions related to, I take the test, I get a good score, but not exactly what I wanted, not a great score, or I'm in the average, but I want to do better.
Yeah.
When does the test have to be completed for you to be able to apply? And then after I've applied, can I take it again?
You can. It's best to, and this goes to a question we get a lot of times of when's the best round to apply? Well, if you take the GMAT to be ready for round one and your score is not as competitive as you would like it to be, or it might be competitive for admission, but you're really looking for scholarship, maybe you feel like a higher GMAT would help your case, even though there are other elements to that. You take it again. So you apply when you feel like you have the best application ready. Let's say you take the GMAT, you apply, and then you decide to retake it and you get a better score. You can always call the admissions office, email one of the admissions directors, and we can make a note in your file that a new GMAT is coming. But ideally, we want that to happen before we review your application.
And you mentioned the GRE being an option. Do we provide average GRE scores like average GMAT? Or
we don't yet.
Okay.
And very few schools, I think, do, just because it's a pretty new process for business schools, and the volume that we get in terms of a GRE is usually, the volume is pretty low, so it's hard to do an average
comparison.
Yeah. So what you would typically want to do is there's a ets.com or ets.org or whatever it is will give you a chart that you can plug in your scores to give you an idea of what does my GRE score, how does that calculate to a GMAT, and that's something that can be helpful for students to decide, am I within range with this GRE score? Go to ETS, and it will allow you to plug in both older GRE scores, because they redid the test a while ago, the older scores versus the newer scores. But the main thing is we want students to be successful, and history has shown the GMAT, not alone, but the GMAT is an element that helps us indicate your ability to succeed.
So the other question is, in terms of items you submit, you look at GMAT, you look at GREs, you look at test scores, and you mentioned looking at undergraduate scores. Talk about the resume and the resume that you all ask for applicants to complete. What type of resume do you want them to complete? Is a traditional business one?
Traditional business one is sufficient.
And what are you looking for?
Well, so we're looking for, in terms of format, this is a very easy, we would like to see your resume in one page. Now, we understand that we get some candidates who are a little more seasoned, but we do like to see how concise you can be with how you present your work experience. But we ask that it be a professional resume, that it really is clean, it's easy to read, it indicates progression. So how it's formatted is one thing, but then of course we're looking for content. What's in that resume? What have you done that shows that you can be successful in the job that you want? So initially I mentioned one of the buckets we assess is your ability to be successful in the classroom. The second element is how can we gauge your success in employment, and that the job you're looking for, that the skills that you're bringing are going to be relevant, because employers are going to look at, the skills that you had prior to your MBA coupled with the skills you'll get during your MBA to look at different industries. So we're definitely looking for how professional is it, this sounds simple, is it proofread? Are there typos? Did you spell your university correctly, incorrectly? These are things that we are looking at. Now, once you start the program, that resume will go through various iterations. You will have a second-year peer coach helping you proof it. You'll have CMC, the Career Management Center, helping you proof it. So, we're not asking for perfection, because it will go through that process once you get to school, but we just want to make sure that it is professional.
Before we leave that topic, because I had a question that came in that actually sounds like it fits on that a little bit, but it's talking about kind of advisors in the program. So once you're in the program, are there advisors or individuals who are part of the program that are kind of helping you to achieve success? And then what does that look like? What does an advisor in the career area look like? What does an advisor from the program office look like?
Yeah, so every department, whether you're full-time, evening, EMBA, you are going to have support in every area possible. Some of it structured, some of it unstructured. I find myself, even in admissions, becoming an advisor. Prior to this meeting, I had 2 students coming in asking for some advice on things. But you will have a program office. Every MBA program has a program office. So you will have advising in terms of what kind of clubs are available and how can I become a leader within the program. So that lifestyle element will be there. What classes? The program office also helps with class scheduling and advising. So you will go through, whether it's with Dean Brian Mitchell or Corey Dortch or Amy Bentley or Harriet Ruskin, you will have advisors helping you select the right classes. And then on the career side, from before you begin your program, you will have contact with your CMC coach, and the CMC stands for Career Management Center. The coaches are there to really be your advocate in making sure that you are ready to present your resume. They help you with mock interviews, coaching you on what kind of careers you're looking at. So there is support around every turn that you have. And again, some are structured, some unstructured. We are, at least in the full-time program, the smallest of the top 20 schools. So you will get to know everybody here. So when it comes down to looking for jobs, looking for counsel, you don't have to look far to get different perspectives, which I think students find very valuable here, that they can come knock on anyone's door, from mine to Roz in the hallway of the second floor, to get some help.
So I think that's a really good point to be able to talk about. When you're here, you're sort of not dropped off, right? There's a lot of the school has been lauded for years for having an amazing outreach process during the application process. And as you apply, you will meet Heather and Libby and Kathleen and Katie and all the folks that are downstairs across all the programs, as this is a very collaborative effort. But that doesn't end at the stage of application or even at being admitted. It's sort of, that's part of the fabric of the school. And I think the more that you can interact with the program, the more that you'll see that support is continued through the program in career and kind of throughout your time. Before we get into talking about career, because I know we have a couple of really good questions on that, I want to make sure we've tackled everything in the application stage before we leave that. So I had two questions that came in, very different. One in the category of backgrounds and then one in the category of scholarships. So let's talk a little bit about backgrounds. What should a person expect that is being evaluated in relation to being a business background, or being from a business background or a non-business background, and also being junior, so maybe only a couple of years of work experience, or being more senior than most in the program. So that's not just for full-time, but in evening or an executive, as a non-business or business person, or a less than or more than average number of years of work. How do you guys evaluate it?
Yeah, so we are a general management business school. So we are not known for one particular area. So what that means is we get students, which is what we adore. We get students from absolutely every walk of life and every background. So we embrace diversity. We are not necessarily just looking for students who came from Wall Street or consulting or brand management and are looking to go back. So in many of our programs, in particular our 2-year program, and in some cases it could be our evening, you could be looking to make a total career change. Now, that is not as true if you are looking at our 1-year program, where we do expect that there will be a degree of business acumen academically and professionally, because the 1-year program is geared more towards students who know what they want, they're staying within a similar industry, so we do expect that there is more of that somewhat business background. But no, we have had school teachers, have had artists, we've had Teach for America, we've had a lot of different types of backgrounds, and we embrace that. And it really benefits all of our students, because students tell me all the time how inspiring it is to be in a class when you're trying to figure out how problems are solved. How helpful is it to be in a classroom full of people like you worked with? You know how problems are solved in finance or in HR or in brand, but how do you solve these kind of problems from another perspective? So people come in with such different experiences, but they all can learn from each other. We do, all programs are going to have some sort of criteria for years of experience. With the evening and full-time, we typically look at about 5 years as the average. For evening might be a little bit more. And of course, the executive MBA, depending on which format, you're going to have quite a few more years expected. In particular, we just want to make sure that you're going to be successful and you're going to be a strong contributor to class. So if you have fewer years of work, that doesn't mean you're not going to be able to contribute. It doesn't mean you're not eligible to be admitted. It just means we're going to look for more substantive work from you if you're on the lower end. our main priority is to assure that you are able to provide a lot of feedback in your classroom. So a lot of students say what they get out of class. Yes, it comes from faculty. I am on camera. I should never. Yes, the faculty are critical.
Yes.
Absolutely. But what you get from each other is also instrumental. And so someone coming in with not very strong work, whether it's fewer or a lot of years, is not going to be as contributed. More years of work, so our average is 5 years for full time. We sometimes do have students with more years of work, and again, are your career goals, realistic? Are you going to be relatable for companies? So we do look at how you're going to be set up for success, whether you have fewer years or more years of work. So it's really on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely. And I think that as the question, what we hear a lot of in relation to question is people are trying to figure out what's the average, right? I want to make sure that I'm hitting in the average. I don't have too much work or too little work. I don't have, I'm not from a background, it's not what you're looking for, what you are looking for. And Heather, said it best. We have a great broad range in the program, even though we're small. So they're usually mining that application pool to find people who are fits for the program and what makes sense and works well there. So there's a lot, I think, that can be considered in that, in terms of that range. I think there isn't really a magic number, right?
No.
There's not a magic number. There's not a magic amount of years.
It's case by case.
But it is intentional in your process, in your application, to explain yourself in full in terms of the process. So talk a little bit about some of the strengths and weaknesses you see in an application, and sort of what you would kind of, if you're giving advice to the folks who are applying to any of the programs, what are some of the things you would recommend that they pay close attention to?
Yeah, I think we could do a whole web chat just on that particular question. But I think, when you go through the MBA application process, you will quickly realize how self-aware you're going to become and how much you're going to learn about yourself and what your strengths are and what your goals are. And so what we're asking is that you apply when you've gone through and you really feel like you've identified what it is that you want to do, and what you're bringing to the table. And so what we ask that application be very authentic. It does nobody any good for you to write things down that you think is just what we want to hear, because we want to make sure that this is a good fit for you, it's a good fit for us, and we can only do that if you are telling your true story. Having said that, we ask that you get help. Make sure you have people proofreading your essays. The worst thing that we can see is someone that just has not thoughtfully put an application together. There's typos, there's errors. You're writing essays that tell us how much you badly want to go to Darden. I mean, you just don't want to. You want to be very thoughtful. And we all of the admissions reps from other schools laugh about how, your school was mentioned in our essay, in our essay,
right?
Because we realize you're applying to multiple schools. So to be very thoughtful in how you're putting the application together. If there are holes, GMAT, you've taken it 5 times. Hay is in the barn, you've done the best you could, but it's still not the score that you feel. You have an option through an optional essay to address and guide us into why things are a certain way. A lot of people ask about their college GPA, right? There's nothing you can do about your college GPA at this point.
Right.
So if that's a piece that concerns you, always give yourself the opportunity to explain and help us feel okay about an element that might be lacking in your application.
Those are always really big things that I think people don't take advantage of, the opportunity to address them before they're to address them in a proactive manner, as opposed to wanting to have somebody trying to figure out what.
Because we will anticipate, we will look at the worst case scenario,
right?
And so regardless of what it is, fewer years of work, low GMAT, low GPA. If you need to explain why you're choosing certain recommenders, we understand that a lot of your employers don't know that you're leaving for business school, and so you might be more inclined to ask a client or community service leader of an organization you might be involved in. But if it's something's out of the norm with your application, share it with us, and that doesn't mean write a 4-page book,
right.
But just give us confidence in something that we may have some concern over in your application.
That's a good way to put it. Reinstill that point. Before we leave the application process, I don't want to leave without talking about scholarship, because there have been a good number of questions. I'm going to try to do my best to summarize them, because they're all sort of around the same points.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is in relation to all of the MBA programs when I say that their merit-based scholarships are considered for all of the programs.
Mm-hmm.
When an individual is looking to figure out how do I qualify for them, and when do I need to apply in order to be qualified? Can you talk a little bit specifically about the full-time process, and then separately just how an individual can position themselves?
Yes. So in all programs, all of our scholarships are merit-based. But the process and the amounts and ranges will vary between different programs. So being on the full-time committee, I'm certainly comfortable talking about that process. So scholarships for full-time, at least, are decided at the time of application. So there's no separate, and I think that's true for all programs, there's no separate application. So if you hit submit for your application, you will automatically be considered for a merit-based award. Students are evaluated for those merit-based awards based on the quality of the overall application. So, and it's not just, everyone asks, what's the magic sauce? How can I get the most? It's to get the most for what you're providing is high on all metrics. So does that mean that everyone with a really high GMAT is going to get a really high scholarship? No. Does that mean if you don't have a high GMAT, you're not going to get anything? No. So we're looking for the caliber of every element of that application. We also, in the full-time program, have named scholarships. So timing is, to get any merit award, you should apply by round 3 for full-time. That's what we would, that's what we're asking students. To be considered for our named scholarships, which have a donor associated with it. It means you can put it on your resume. We do ask in full-time that you apply by round 2, just for the timing of when those names are designated. So there is somewhat of a timeline, and all that's listed on our website. But so again, scholarships are all merit-based. The quality of the overall application will determine the quality of the scholarship given, and you're notified of your scholarship amount, at least in full-time, when you're notified of your admissions decision. So there's no separate waiting process for that, which students do appreciate, that they know everything within the same moment.
So you currently see up on the screen the full-time MBA deadlines in relation to what Heather was speaking through. The notifications are timed to the deadlines. Third round deadline is included here. I think, if I see it correctly, and my screen is very cluttered. Round 3 is January 9th as a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure you're applying by the third round, as Heather was mentioning, will make sure you're within the window of scholarship, but also those named scholarships. And that's good timing from now. You're sitting here in almost September, if you will, kind of ready to present a really solid application.
And for named scholars, you'd really want round 2 is what we're looking at for the
okay, for named scholars. Mm-hmm. Apologies. So you'll see round 2 is November 14th. So that's still good timing between now and then.
And again, does that mean if you apply round 3, you aren't going to be considered?
Correct.
It doesn't. But just to give yourself a cushion, we do prefer that students apply by round 2.
Great. Well, we're going to move to talk a little bit less about the application and move a little bit more into assuming all of you have applied, as I know you all will, and assuming your applications are flawless and wonderful and you become a member of our program, there's a lot of questions about the career process, right? So once you get into business school, all of you are going to have an impact on your career. That's the goal of going to business school. Maybe not the only goal, but a primary goal. So there's some questions about sort of how the career process happens in business school. Mm-hmm. And so if you can talk a little bit, recognizing this is more a career management center thing, but definitely something that I know you guys speak about often on the road. How does the school kind of assist individuals as they're looking to change careers? When they're going to get an MBA, they want to change from what they're doing now to what they would be doing when they leave. What's that look like? Tell me what kind of support they get.
Yeah, so there's different elements to that. So you will get exposure to different careers through interactions with the CMC, through company presentations. We bring, and that's the benefit of being in Atlanta. It is not hard for us to get just about anybody to come here and talk to our students, whether it be through a formal presentation, whether it be through an alum having an informal coffee with students. So we are in a very prime spot to give our students access to different companies. As I mentioned, you have a CMC coach that will be assigned to you to help you navigate some of these waters. You also can elect to participate in our alumni mentor program, which I think is extremely helpful to be paired with an alum. Ideally, someone that is in your area of interest. To give you some insight, you will have a second-year peer coach that will help you in terms of, again, looking at your resume and giving you some advice as they come back from their summer internships. The immediately in the fall, you will be immersed, which is amazing why we start early. You'll be immersed in a lot of the career conferences. So National Black is coming up here in the next couple weeks, which will be taking place in Atlanta, where you'll be able to go and sample different and talk to different companies and interview with different companies. They have booths, just like a big fair. We also allow students the opportunity in the fall to do what we call career treks. So first year students, we have a career trek that goes to Wall Street. Because just like business schools, banks, brands, companies have personalities and styles. And so this is a chance for you to really explore the different companies and industries that are out there. We do a trek typically every year to San Francisco, and last year they went to Seattle for technology. We've done treks to Asia. So those are opportunities. In your second semester, all first year students will do what's called the management practice elective. Our students embrace the opportunity to work on real world projects, and they get that opportunity through management practice. There are 5 or 6 different options. So that is another way for students to, if you don't have experience in valuating a company, you've never worked in finance, but you really want to, you take valuations with J.B. Kurish and you have clear exposure. You want to be in marketing or do consulting, you could look at GMSC and give you exposure of working with a real client to deliver or to provide real deliverables on a marketing consulting project. There's one in healthcare, there's nonprofit, so that's an opportunity through management practice automatically in the second semester. Different from a lot of schools, our curriculum is set up to give students access very early to different careers because all of your core is in the first semester.
Correct.
So when you're done, guess what happens in the spring? You get to take all of the electives to start really getting a sense of what industries are like as early as the second semester. Students in the 2-year program, an internship. Anyone who's career seeking should do an internship.
Correct.
And our students just returned, and they returned enlightened. This is exactly what I wanted, or what I wanted, but I don't want to live in that city. So that's the internship is an integral part of helping you realize what careers are out there. So the 2-year program is very open to career changers. 1-year program, as we've mentioned before, not as much. You're really focused from day one, but there's a support system there to give you the exposure you need.
There's some questions that have come in about international students in relation to the career process, and I think everything Heather mentioned there is true for all students, right? So all of those things they're not unique to just domestic students, but I will say, having worked with and known much of the CMC, the career figures that we have for our international students are impressive. Career numbers we have for all of our students are impressive from a full-time standpoint in terms of those that are career seeking. The ability to go to business school and learn how you want to perform in your career is really important. And as you were saying, the internships are enlightening, but so are the courses and the opportunities to kind of work on the project and determine whether what you think you're interested in is truly what you're interested in. And so going beyond just what you're learning in the classroom and the theory, putting it into practice to see if this is the career you'd like to have for, kind of the next however long foreseeable future. So international students don't see other issues, if you will, than domestic students. Now, there are other challenges in that there are not as many companies who are able to hire international students to be able to work through that, but that is the same across all business schools.
That's true. That's not unique. And so, international students do need to have somewhat of a greater degree of flexibility and ask those questions. If you want to be a brand manager at an American company and you're international, it's not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. There are some companies that don't provide H-1B visas. So just know that. And again, that's not going to be Goizueta specific or any school specific. That's going to be really national. That's common with all programs. So just do your homework and know ask the questions. That's why every school does, do things like this. And we answer questions like this on the road and in interviews. But like Angela said, our international students have fared well. All of our students, if you look at our stats for the last or since I've been here for 7
Right.
years,
So
career.
in the last 4 or 5 years, they've been stellar. I got a question that just came in a minute about employment report. So for the full-time side of the house, the most recent employment report, the 2012-2013 report, can be found on the website. If you go there, that should show the statistics from the students for the class of 2013.
Right.
The class of 2014 report won't come out until about October or November, if you will. Those figures get finalized in the fall. So those are the students just returning back from internships and those who just graduated in 2014. So those numbers will be out. In the last 3 years, we have been top school for that. And in the last 5 years, for as long as they've sort of tracked that as a metric in terms of MBA employment, we've been a top 10 school. So just a strongly performing program for the reasons that Heather mentioned, not just the academics, but the way that we have integrated the academics into actually being able to have a real world experience. So you'll find a lot more details to that. But yes, to Heather's point, you need to explore and ask the questions. So before we leave kind of the idea of careers, I want to talk about events and the value that they play in being able to do your homework and to learn about that. I've got up on the screen, and hopefully you guys can read it, some of the events coming up for the evening, executive, and full-time MBA programs. And it honestly doesn't matter what event you're looking to go to. There are important things to get out of events, and there's important opportunities that happen when you can interact one-on-one with a school and its students and its faculty and its alums, and those are different in each kind of program, but gathering the information is really critical. So Heather, can you talk a little bit about how the full-time program, and all the programs honestly, use recruiting events as kind of an option for students to find out about the program?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I actually just had breakfast with 2 of our current first-year students this morning, and they were both saying how they had such a clear vision of what they wanted out of a school and what they felt they were going to get after they visited campus. Because we understand at this point in time, you're probably looking at data. You're looking at rankings. You're looking at location. You're looking at, just more very high level things. And what we hope is that once you start getting your acceptance letters, and even as you're in the process of applying, that you will make the right fit. So it won't just be about what school is the highest ranked or which one is in the city that I think is going to be the coolest to live in 2 years. But what students unanimously say is once they come to the school, and this is nothing against you, Angela, but websites all start to look kind of the same
Right. No,
after a
you're
while,
right.
right? Like we all sometimes say the same things, and you go to the fairs and everything starts to sound alike. What can't be simulated is the experience you get on campus, and you meet the network. The MBA, you hear this all the time, you are going to develop this strong network. Well, is this the network that you want to count on, not only for 2 years while you're in school, but the 20 years, the 30 years? Are these the people that are going to be your children's godparent? I mean, these are going to be lifelong associations. So students will tell us, it's when I came to campus and I met these students, these faculty members, these alumni, that I really got a sense of what the spirit of Goizueta was about. And, because after a while, again, I mean, we're all well reputed, have great facilities, amazing faculty. It really comes down to, is this my network? And am I going to be set up for success with the people I'm going to be around? All the events, some of the events are different in what you get. Some will give you exposure to class. You'll get to sit in a real class or hear from a real faculty member.
And talk a little bit about, if you're looking at the list, this is the height of the full-time recruiting cycle. So and I'm sure you can tell because there's a slew of events for the full-time side.
Right.
But the evening and executive programs also consistently have information sessions and web chats like these and opportunities to get involved with them throughout the year as well. But talk a little bit about the full-time events that are coming up and sort of how an individual can use them either on campus or in the city they might be in to engage.
Yes. So we hope that you will always come to campus, in addition to visit us when we're in your city. But we would really hope that you can make the effort and the time to come onto campus, because I don't think anything can really simulate as best that experience. So hopefully that will be supplemental to, if we're coming to your city. But you have options of coming midweek, which we have found a lot of students appreciate. They're willing to take off the time from work. They want to come in when real classes are in session and they get to see what a real day is like. So class visits will begin September 8th. We offer them Monday through Friday in the fall. And you will be able to sit in on a real class. You will be able to go to lunch, get a tour with an ambassador. So usually you want to commit to about 3 or 4 hours. We have 2 days in particular during the fall called Insight Days, and these are both on Mondays. So if you wanted to come in for the weekend before and experience all the great things Atlanta has to offer, but on Mondays it's a little bit, there's more programming built around. So not only do you do a class visit, you will have an info session to hear from our program dean, Brian Mitchell, hear from members of the CMC. There will be an admissions session. So it's a lot more robust, formal programming around those class visits. So those are ideal. If you are not in a position to come in during the week, we will have a Super Saturday on October 11th. And this will be, you'll get everything that you would get midweek. The class will be simulated, of course, because it won't be a real class on Saturday. But you'll have the opportunity to meet alumni. Interviews in the fall through round 2, if you come on campus, are open. So you don't have to have submitted an application. So that is a huge draw for students to come onto campus so that they can also complete their admissions interview. So that will happen either on an open house or Super Saturday or one of these Insight Days or during class visit season. We also travel, so we do a lot of receptions. It's a way for us to meet you near your home. It's a way for us to invite our alumni that live in that city, because we do appreciate your interest in talking with graduates of the program. So oftentimes we will do happy hours, we might do a breakfast, and those dates are all determined and are on our website. The venues are secured, and so that's a really good opportunity to meet with staff, meet with alumni. If you are in New York, we will have an event at the end of the month, October 28th, where it's during that Trek Week that I mentioned before. So you'll not only get to meet alumni and staff, but we will have some current students attending that event as well, because they are in town for the New York Trek Week. So, so there's a lot of opportunities to engage our staff, current students, and alumni.
And I think that I can't stress enough how valuable it is to take advantage of those things, to really be able to interact with the population at hand and sort of be available and nearby to talk to the alumni and the faculty and the staff and the folks who are already in the program about the experiences that you're going to have.
And if I can also add,
Sure.
we, in addition to that open house, there are 2 special events that we do that are by invitation only. So everything I've mentioned is very open, right? Anyone can sign up. There are 2 events in particular. One is Inside Goizueta, which is our diversity recruiting event, and that is November 6th through the 8th, and our Women at Goizueta event, which is the following weekend. So those particular events, it's a limited number. You do need to apply for those events. That doesn't mean you apply for admission, but you apply to attend the event. So those are smaller scale, very intimate, and very focused in the content delivery. So those are another an amazing opportunity to connect with, if you are interested in applying for the consortium, or you are interested in that particular area. If you're a woman and you want to get an idea of what is it like to be a woman at Goizueta, there will be special topics about that. So I wanted to make sure to give a plug for those special events as well.
And you can find all of the events that are upcoming on our calendar. If you go to any of the programs, each of the programs have their events in their event section. Or if you go to the main school website, there's a news and events section, and you can see all the news and upcoming kind of dates and things related there. And that way you'll be able to find exactly what you'd be looking for. But I would encourage, as Heather mentioned, that you look at on-campus events, you look at off-campus events, you do web chats just like you're doing now, as many opportunities as you can to interact with the brand, interact with the school, and find out what makes it unique and if it's a fit for you. As Heather said before, top 25 programs are all great, and I would love to believe that our marketing makes our school an amazingly differentiated thing, but it's most important that you find out whether a school resonates with you for the reasons that you want an MBA. And that happens very well when you can find a time to have one-on-one, or at least get your questions, your specific questions, answered by the folks that know it best.
Yeah.
So,
and we have ambassadors on our website as well that are able to connect with you. So if you go to our website, there's a section on multiple pages saying connect with a current student or alumni ambassador. Those names will rotate monthly, so you'll have an opportunity to also email and just say, I have a couple questions. Be thoughtful of their time too, and don't email every single one of them the same question. But we provide a lot of outlets for you to get to know us, and that's important to us, that you get a really good sense of who we are before you make any decisions.
Absolutely. So I think we've tackled all the questions on here. If your question wasn't answered online or behind camera, we've captured it to answer it via email later on. We so appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. Thank Heather for being here for us. Hopefully you'll be able to meet Heather in person at an event upcoming or join another web chat in the future. But until then, we hope you have a great rest of your day. And for those of you around, enjoy a great holiday weekend. Have a great one. Bye.
All right, bye.